Hello, in today's final squat session, we're going to be looking at the relationship between our rib cage and our pelvis and just how this can affect our squat mechanics. So there will be revisiting a lot of the stuff that we did in sessions 1 to 3, some stuff with the hips, some stuff with our feet, and mostly just looking at how our thoracic mobility, so this is your rib cage, can affect our squat, and how to just some strategies for really arranging our core, our center, so that squatting doesn't hurt our back and feels good in our hips. Begin on your back. And what we'll actually start with is some 360-degree breathing. So thinking about directing our breath into the ring of space around our lower ribs. You can find your lower ribs with your hand if you're not quite sure what I mean. So look at where your solar plexus is. So that's the bit in the front of your body that sort of separates. Bring your hands there in the front of your body. So you start there, and then you can make your way round, just slowly listening to how you breathe in this area and whether you can create movement at this area with the breath. So just as you're beginning to breathe in and breathe out, can you direct your inhale into this space? Inviting a sense that you expand through 360 degrees as you breathe in. And then you contract, or it's actually a relaxation as you breathe out, and this space draws back inwards. So it's like your rib cage closes slightly. It's really useful here to bring your attention to the back of your body. And if the base of your rib cage in the back is away from the mat, just maybe bring your hands there or some kind of cushion so you can actively push downwards into this space as you breathe in, and then feel the relaxation as you breathe out. So you can feel it through the change in pressure in the back of your ribs. So trying to keep some of that intention to breathe into your lower ribs. Bring your hands to your 2 frontal hip points and begin to move your pelvis here. So you'll start just by observing how your pelvis moves. And then as you press into your feet, your heels and your toes, we'll bring more intention into this movement. Waistband will get heavy as your tailbone lifts, and then tailbone becomes heavy as your waistband lifts. And it's really useful as you're continuing with this movement, so once you're familiar with the forwards and backwards pelvic tilt, to notice how your lower ribs respond. Initially, can you keep them grounded? So the movement is isolated to your pelvis, to your lower back. And then gradually, as your tailbone gets light and your waistband becomes heavy, pause here for a moment, pressing into that space just above your pelvis, before slowly peeling yourself up. So this is what I've called spinal polishing. You're peeling yourself away from the floor, one vertebra at a time. So lifting yourself up, keeping your shoulders grounded, trying to maintain the position of your pelvis, trying to maintain the weight through your feet. Come up to maybe your shoulder blades, you might lift a bit higher. And then as you roll back down, from the top down, as carefully as when you peeled up, re-glue your spine to the floor. Now, because of the curves of your spine, you won't be able to have all of it in contact with the floor at the same time. So just notice as your pelvis lands, there'll be some portion of your spine that will be away from the floor. That's okay. Let's try this in our own time twice more. Slowly peeling up and just as slowly rolling down. Be really curious here about any difference from left to right. And just know that is normal, but it is something that you can start to address with this movement. So you might even have your toes against a wall. So initially your feet are actually even, because I know that often when I do this, one of my feet is further forwards than the other. Okay, and as you land, take a moment just to feel the weight of your pelvis, the weight of your rib cage. Notice your breath. Can you return to the 360-degree breath, maybe for 1 or 2 breaths here? And then just inviting a little bit more weight in the back of your ribs. Notice your contact points with the floor. They stay the same, so your torso doesn't move as you begin to march your legs up and down. So you're pulling one knee towards your chest at a time. So this is a core exercise. What we're trying to do is stabilize our torso as our legs move. So be really interested here. Notice how much your knee moves towards your chest before your pelvis needs to roll. So often we couple hip flexion with spinal flexion, which is why you get that sort of butt wink at the bottom of a squat. Now as you lift both legs up, it's the same movement, but the middle point is with your feet lifted rather than feet down. So just gently tapping your feet towards the floor. Keep the weight in the back of your rib cage, so you're not letting those pop away from the floor. You're not letting your pelvis move. You're staying stable through your cannister, your core cannister. So if you think of it as a Coke can, the pressure stays the same. And we're going to continue with some core movement. Bring your knees in for a second. Let your breath move a bit more freely into your belly. And then as your knees return towards each other, shins parallel to the ceiling, reach both arms up to the ceiling. So from here, moving alternate limbs, keeping your center still. So as I reach my left arm back, I'm going to reach my right leg forwards. The other 2 limbs stay where they are. Come back through the center. Left leg forwards, right arm back. And as you're moving here, only go so far forwards with your leg and so far back with your arm as to maintain the same contact points with the floor. So there's no point completely sort of bringing your limbs down if it makes you arch with your back away from the floor. So keep them at a point where you can stay stable. Okay, now keep your right leg where it is. Bring your left leg to the mat and bring your arms down either side of you. Use your arms here to start to press really firmly into the floor as you just softly pull this left heel in towards you. So I'm doing that to establish the same contact points with the mat. Pelvis is still, back of the ribs is still, right knee is stacked over my right hip. From here, press down into your arms. So you create quite a firm amount of tension through your body, and you've got some feedback here. So you can feel where your pelvis is, you can feel where your rib cage is. And just notice how close to your chest you can bring your right knee here. Keeping your pelvis still, take your right knee out to the right. Keeping your pelvis still, bring your right leg across your body to the left. Don't let the right side of your pelvis lift. From here, push your right foot forwards, again, keeping your pelvis still. Bring your right knee back in. So the knee moves as close to your chest as you can get it without rounding your lower back into the mat. Open your right knee out to the right. Take your right leg across your body. And then straighten your right leg forwards. Let's try that once more. Contact points with the floor stay the same. Right knee pulls in. Make sure you've still got this lower back curve. So it's not rounding into the mats. Right knee opens out to the right. Right knee moves across to the left. Right leg straightens out in front of you. Keep the lower back curve the same so it doesn't get any bigger here. And then bring both knees in towards your chest. Oof. Give them a circle. And then as you come back through the center, keep your left knee where it is. Straighten your right leg out. If you're like me, you'll notice that as your right leg straightens, it kind of creates quite an excessive curve at your lower back. That's just because my bum's big. So what we'll do from here is slide your right heel in to the point where you can get firm through the back of your pelvis again. You can be firm through the back of your ribs. You'll notice in that last movement, I had my hands under the curve of my lower back. That's a good option, or you can bring them down. This just means that you keep the feedback on your hands the same throughout the movement. So once you feel stable here, pull your left knee as close to your chest as you can get it. Open it out to the left. Take it across to the right. And then bring your left leg back out in front of you. Or straighten it out, sorry. Twice more in each direction. So knee comes in. Notice what's happening at the curve of your spine. Knee out to the left. Across to the right. And then straighten out. One more time here. So we've got this lovely floor for feedback. How does our spine respond to our hip being in deep flexion? It's obviously not the same as a squat because you have both legs. You'll have something on your back or your front. And you've got ankles and feet at play as well, but it's a good indicator of what might happen when you bring your hip into flexion. Bring both knees in towards your chest. Give those knees a circle. And then off to one side and straight up and round to all fours. So we won't be too long here on all fours, pressing firmly through your hands. Initially, just notice if you can move your pelvis. So it's the same forwards and backwards tilts that we were doing when we were on our back. This time, you might feel you get a little bit more movement because the floor's not in the way. The next time, your tailbone points towards the ceiling. So your belly button is down, pointing down at the floor. Nice and slowly let this shape snake its way up the length of your spine. So you're slowly lowering your vertebra, your spinal vertebra away from the ceiling. And then you're beginning the process of pulling your breastbone forwards, which helps you to find a bit more length. Notice if your neck is taking over here. So your neck is your spine, but it is not the leader of the movement here. So less of this nice long neck, allowing your neck to follow the line of the rest of your spine. And then change direction here. Start from your pelvis, tailbone tips towards the mat. Your waistband should round towards the ceiling. And again, try and share this shape out along the length of your spine. So really think about belly button lifting, lower ribs lifting, breastbone lifting, and then taking a look back at your knees. Try this once more in each direction. So start from your tailbone up towards the ceiling. Really trying to create as much mobility through our spine as possible by controlling those actions. With this movement, just notice any tendency to travel forwards or back. So any tendency to sort of travel over your wrists or back. Try not to let that happen. Try and stay where you are and direct the movement into your spine. And as you come back to what feels like a neutral spine here, just to give those arms a break, walk your hands forwards, elbows down. We'll do a couple of hip rotations on each side. Bend your left knee heel to bottom. Keep that left knee bent as you bring your leg up behind you. Try not to let your weight shift here. So weight stays even through all three limbs that are down. Circle your left kneecap out to the left. Pull your knee to your armpits. Knee underneath your body. Leg presses back. And switch direction, knee to chest. Knee out to the left. Leg circles around behind you and comes back down. Same on the right side. So keep your right knee down. Bend your knee, pull your heel to your bottom. Then send your bent knee back. Open your kneecap out to the left. Pull your knee to your armpit. Circle your leg underneath your body and press your leg back. Reverse this movement, knee to chest. Knee out to the left. Bring your leg round behind you and bring that leg back down. Come back up onto your hands. Straighten your left leg back this time and let's move this foot. So you're trying to move your foot and your ankle without your knee moving. Toes come back, toes curl under. Knee stays straight. Switch legs. Left knee returns underneath you, right leg back. Roll over the ball of your right foot. And then right knee comes back underneath you. Let's work now with our bird dogs, which is another core exercise. This time you flipped it on its head. So we were doing this on our back. Start to just find a sense of evenness through all four limbs. See if you can just stick this position. So your torso stays where it is. Imagine there's a big wall either side of you, so you can't lean left to right. As you straighten your left leg back, lift your leg up and reach your right arm forwards. Pause here. Really pull your left toes towards your shin. And think about directing your breath, your inhale, into your lower ribs in the back of your body. So you're stopping this rib flare towards the floor. Lower right hand, left knee. Same on the other side. So right leg comes back. You're drawing your breath into the back of your ribs here as you reach your left arm forwards. Pause. Notice what you feel through your centre. Can you feel any excessive tension across the back of your pelvis? If you can, that means you're probably extending your pelvis, extending your spine. Keep your spine as level as you can. Continue to breathe into the back of your ribs. Lower left hand, right knee. From here, curl all 10 toes under. Keep that sense of your pelvis being in the same position it was for your dead bugs and your bird dogs as you send your weight back. So what we're doing here is deepening our hip creases and not allowing that same position as a butt wink. So you're not allowing your tailbone to tuck under. Your tailbone stays pointing back. And then shift forwards. So you can do this with toes pointing back, that's fine, or with toes pointing under, curling under. The aim is to keep your pelvis and your rib cage in line with each other. So you could imagine here that you've got a broomstick connected to the back of your head, the space between your shoulders and the back of your pelvis. Stay in this position now as you keep your weight back, thinking about trying to tip your tailbone to the ceiling and your belly button to the floor. So you're really deepening your hip creases. Stay firm on your hands. Notice your breath. Can you still direct your breath into the back of your ribs? From here, as you press into your hands, lift your knees. Send this shape back into downwards facing dog. So your bottom goes back, the weight stays even along the ball of each foot. And then gradually begin to make your way back to a standing forwards fold. Press the floor away with your feet as you roll up to standing. Lovely. Let's do a little bit of spinal mobility here as we come up. So just think about your feet being level. I'm going to lift my toes for this, just so the arches of my feet are alive, awake, and keep my ankles stacked over my feet. Tip, so I'm going to mirror you now, tip right ear to right shoulder as you take yourself over to the right. So you're lengthening through the left side of your body. Right arm or left arm reaches up and over. Come back up through the centre. Keep those toes lifted so you're alert through the balls of your feet. Then left ear to left shoulder as you drape your weight over to the left. Right arm lifts up and over. Up through the centre. Bring your hands to your thighs. Keep your pelvis stacked over your ankles here as you round your upper back. So you're rolling forwards, trying to round through as much of your spine as possible, but keeping your pelvis in place. And then pressing into your feet to restack. Articulate your spine so you arrive upright. Opposite way is lifting your pelvis, your breastbone away from your belly button. Pressing those arms back. Back up through the centre, toes are still lifted. Reach your arms forwards. Separate your shoulder blades. Bend your elbows, give yourself a cuddle here. Really important here to keep your pelvis where it is so it stays as though it's between four walls. So pelvis does not move. Upper back is going to move here. So we're going to tip our elbows forwards. Keep this flexion in our upper back as we roll our elbows round to the right. So you're sort of looking down to the right. Right shoulder blade tips back. And then left shoulder blade tips back. Roll round through the centre. We take left elbow towards the floor. Both elbows towards the floor. Come back up to centre before going the opposite way. So tip down. Roll round to the left. Left shoulder blade back. Right shoulder blade back. Round through the centre. Elbows point down. And then you return to an upright position. Release those toes. Release those arms. Okay. From here, find a space where you can balance. So I'm coming to the wall because it's the most stable thing. A chair, a sofa, anything is good. So we're going to try those same hip rotations that we did on all fours. This time standing. And this time with what's called irradiation in our body. So I instructed it slightly wrong, slightly incorrectly in the classes that we did. This time round, We're thinking about creating full body global tension to cheer on the hip joint as it moves. So just bring your hand to your balance point, press down into your foot. So you can mirror me or you can just use whatever leg. I'll keep the instructions neutral so there's no left and right here. So we're going to start to just squeeze our free arm, the arm that's not holding on. Squeeze your belly. So rather than bracing, so you take a breath in and brace into an imaginary belt, think about squeezing down. So those ribs draw in, your belly squeezes, your bum squeezes, the grounded leg switches on. Everything is on to stop your body from compensating and to focus on just our hip joint. So from here, pull your knee in towards your chest. Pull it as high as you can get it. Your whole body is switched on. This should feel tough. Knee stays where it is, but your foot's going to swing across towards your support. So it's external rotation at your hip. Foot comes back underneath as you take your leg out. So make sure that you're engaged here so you're not rotating away from your base of support. Leg goes up and over here, so foot back, knee forwards. Keep the brace. Press your foot back. This is hip extension. This might give you cramp. It's giving me cramp. Pull your knee back in towards your standing leg and then bring your leg back out in front of you. One more external rotation here, so foot out towards the wall. Foot underneath your knee. Reverse. So press your foot back. From here, it's really important to keep that firm relationship between ribcage and pelvis so you're not sticking your bum out. Open your kneecap out away from your base of support and then pull your knee in towards your armpit. Take your leg back in towards the center, keep braced. Bring your foot back. Straighten your leg, lower your foot to the floor. Release the tension, take a breath. Give your pelvis some circles. Beautiful. Now coming back through the center, find another base of support. Might be the same one. Create this full body tension. So imagine the floor is moving towards you and you are pressing it away. The wall or the chair is moving towards you, you're pressing it away. Someone's trying to punch you in the tummy, you're braced. So it's that sort of breath out rather than the breath in. Keep all of this work. Squeeze the arm that isn't on the base of support. Bring your knee in towards your chest, so the opposite leg from before. Keep your knee where it is. Open your foot towards your base of support. Foot back underneath your knee. Open your leg out into the rim. Don't let your torso move away from your base of support. Kneecap forwards, heel back. Press your foot back. Bring your leg back in towards your base of support. And then knee back out in front of you. Keep your knee in front of you. Foot goes across towards the wall. Foot back underneath your knee. Reverse the movement here. Foot back. Kneecap out away from the wall. Knee in towards your armpit. I've got a solid cramp here, but it's okay. Leg back in towards the center. Foot presses back. Straighten your knee. Let go of that pressure through your body. Start to take a circle here as you land on your mats. And just begin with some rotations of your feet. So we're going to warm those feet a little bit for our closing movement here. Just make sure your ankles feel good. You feel able to really bring your ankles into dorsiflexion, so the position of squatting. I'm now going to ask you to find something to raise your heels. So I'm going to use my mat. You want a decent enough raise of your heels so that you can sit very comfortably in a squat. If you can sit comfortably in a squat without raising your heels, congratulations, the class has worked. So from where you are, find your squat width. So usually, I think it's just wider than your own shoulders. You might go a bit wider. Toes might be forwards. There's nothing wrong with toes forwards. There's nothing wrong with toes out. What I don't like is this sort of plie, which you probably don't do as an athlete, which is what yogis do a lot. So just think about knees, hips and ankles working in concert with each other wherever your toes are pointing. So we're going to work our way through some pelvic tilts in a squat shape. Think of it as an elevator. So we're going down a few floors here. My intention here is to stop at the point where you can't move your pelvis anymore. So let's start quite high. Establish this firm sense of a relationship between your ribcage and your pelvis. We're going to keep this relationship the same as we bend our knees and come down slightly. So you're just creasing at the hips and tipping forwards a little bit to accommodate this relationship. Pause here. So say you're on floor 10 and begin to roll your pelvis. So you can disturb the relationship between your ribcage and your pelvis. Keep the weight even along the balls of your feet. This actually might be where you stop. If you find that you come down and you can't move your pelvis, that's fine. Otherwise, try a floor further down. I don't know why I said 10 floors. I can't do this 10 times. You might be able to. So we're going to roll our pelvis forwards and backwards, keeping those legs firm. Okay, down a floor. So we're starting to move towards that squat shape. Rolling your pelvis. The idea of this is that it will give you some awareness as to in a squat when you're doing this and when you're tucking, when you're butt winking. So you can feel where you're the most stable, where your core canister is supporting you. Let's go a little bit further, see if I can do it. Yep. Poor legs. Try one more floor. I think this is where I leave the building. And once you're ready, come all the way down. Come off your support if you're on it. Take a moment here just to circle your shoulders around your wrists and your hips around your knees. So, as you come to stillness, what you might do is if you've got the time and the space, is take your support and lie over it. So you're using it for your upper back. Depending on how long your torso is, I would stick with sort of round about underneath your shoulder blades. So your head and your shoulder blades are over the top. The rest of your body is the other end. And just notice your breath here. And you can pause there for a few minutes, or you can close the practice with me now if you're using this as a warm-up. Any questions, please message me.